The gays are on the boats.
The gays on
The
boats.
gays on boats.
Gays on boats.
And it's not just the Navy anymore.
No, it's not.
In the Navy.
In the Navy.
Do.
I
don't
was
remember all the
gonna
lyrics.
getting pregnant in the Navy.
The men are getting pregnant in the Navy.
Just have to update to like more current terms rather than the like 80s gay language. Just be
Yeah.
like, found a femboy in the Navy.
There's definitely femboys in the Navy.
Femboys can sail the 7 seas.
They really can.
They can do it all.
Chris should try being a femboy, just as a treat.
Yeah, that's just like a gift that is like, here's your like femboy starter kit. Here are your kitty ears, your short shorts, and your long look shirt, like, you know.
Mhm.
And they're like, there you go.
I do want to see Chris in like femboy or like uwu mode.
Okay, let's see if we can make it happen. He
Got
probably
him
would
some,
not do it on camera.
Get him some of those headphones with cat ears.
He would wear those, unironically, though, because he loves
Yeah.
cats.
Cats are great.
He didn't know he loved cats till he met me, and now he is obsessed with them.
Yeah. You learned him.
If he's on his phone and, like, I look over and see what he's doing, he's watching a video of a cat. Always.
Of course he is, because he's a good guy.
Yeah, every
Great guy.
time.
He's a
He's
great
just
guy.
watching, like, cats, like kittens screaming or, like, a cat knocking something over.
Mhm.
Every time. That's what he's doing.
Okay.
I love that.
Are we actually recording this?
We are actually recording. This is the
part of
podcast.
conversation? Oh, okay.
The podcast
Wait.
has changed since the last time you were on. Now we just like do this. And this
Then
is
we
the
remember
entire
an
thing.
hour in that we're doing a podcast. We could do an intro,
I
though.
was expecting a 3, 2, 1. I just wanted to start with this very silly meme that I modified that I found on the internet. That is like, I would like to start by addressing the homies, by which I mean the various transgenders, sodomites, apostates, and critical theorists and tankies and other factions present today. Thank
That, yep.
you. All of you are needed very much.
You were
Yeah.
listening to the voice of the Brat Pod Revolution. Lucian.
Bow.
The transition will not be televised.
Unless you're me.
And me.
Subscribe now. No,
Well,
no.
yeah.
Sunday.
Ari's part of the revolution will not be televised. Well, on that note, hey brats. My name is Robin and I'm trans.
My name is Ben and I'm trans.
And
my name
you
is Ari,
are.
and I'm also trans.
Their name is Ari and they're trans. We all remember and love Ari from, I believe you were, well, first of all, Ari, you were our first guest ever.
Oh, wow.
So you have that unique distinction. But also you were on the 3rd episode, which now was like a lot of episodes ago.
Yes, the
Like-
show continues to exist. And
Yeah,
therefore new guests show up.
I know.
And they say
So
things.
I'm not sure how this one's gonna fall in the like broadcast order or whatever you want to call it, but like the one we just uploaded was episode 19.
Yay.
And we first talked to you before we were even like making a podcast. We are just like, hey, we're doing a thing. You like Ben, right? Trust Ben. You trust Ben, right?
I am
Anyone who trusts me is silly.
I am delighted that your project has taken off, that there are folks listening to these things.
Mm-hmm.
You're out there putting your stories and the stories of other people on the internet,
Yeah.
showing the weird and very joyous communities that we built. And, you know, a little weird sometimes, but
Mhm.
I think the trans community has always been like a place where I have found like love, acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
solidarity, and just, you know, like general affection, or at least people willing to hold place for the things that make me happy, like gender euphoria and things like that.
Yeah.
So, what have you been up to since we talked to you last?
What I've been up to,
Yeah.
I have been set free by the ending of what felt like the longest political campaign that I've witnessed in my entire life. And now I feel like, great, can we not have elections for 4 years? But something tells me that we live in a 24-hour news cycle and we live in the era of the internet and it's the 21st century. So I guess, I'm adjusting to the political reality of the country as I imagine very quickly things will shift, whether that is in a way that is noticeable in our day to day life, or at least shift in a way that is noticeable in the way our government works.
There's so many moving pieces, it's hard to predict anything.
Yeah. And I think it's best, healthiest to just live in the present and just be like, hey, this is where we are. It's still
Mhm.
November. It's not even January, my life is pretty cemented right now. So, like, nothing in my life is really going to change. There is some work that I do in the trans community. Like, right now, I'm part of a cohort of trans people who are doing this recommendation report for transgender healthcare here in the what we call the Tri County area, which is Portland and it's in its suburbs. And so that's kind of boring, really boring work, but it is sort of like counting how many clinics we have in the city that offer gender affirming care, trying to assess patient levels, trying to see if that is going to grow or shrink, and at the very least have our numbers or our fingers on the thing to see if next year things change, if it becomes harder for these clinics to be open. Beyond that work, I work for nonprofits. That work is going to keep going because they're not going to go away regardless of who's president. And then I'm just going to continue to age, which apparently is how life works. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
On that note, can I share a moment of very complicated joy?
sure.
Um, wow. So this has been a week. When we're recording right now, the election would have been like 9 days ago now, I guess.
Mhm.
It's been a hell of a 9 days. To put it very mildly. So, okay, let me just tell you what the joy part of it is. The joy part of it is that since the election, since a lot of worrisome things have happened, it has suddenly become very easy to make connections with people that we need to make connections with in terms of like organizing the community, um, helping people find resources. We've just like very quickly been making a lot of connections with that, which has been amazing. Um, the downside is that we have to do it. So I think Ben and I both kind of very suddenly found ourselves like thrown into the role of like voluntary, what's the word I'm looking for?
Community organizing?
We've suddenly become voluntary community organizers just by necessity, which is like it's something that I've always like cared about and wanted to do, but I wasn't expecting it to suddenly become like a full-time job on top of my full-time job.
It's
And
a lot of work.
I'm very tired right now. I feel like in a sense more fulfilled than I've ever felt, but also more tired than I've ever felt.
Hmm.
It's been a lot.
Yeah, we're pretty much in overtime trying to get as many interviews with experts, like
Mhm.
lawyers, medical people, people who can talk from like an informed position on steps to take to prepare yourselves.
Mhm.
Okay.
But it's a lot of work.
Can I offer you some advice
I
from
would love
someone
that.
who has
Please.
felt
I
very
was going
much
to demand it anyway,
sim-
Ari. We need
Yeah, because
help.
you're here to give
similar.
us advice today, really.
Yes.
In 2016, I was 33, I was in my early 30s, transitioning into mid 30s, and the election really upset me and really, really got to me. It really affected me.
Yeah.
It was also a year that I became very activated because I felt attacked and that I needed to do something. luckily for me, there were a couple of avenues that really proved helpful and also meaningful, and then ultimately led to community building that was also not just like sending emails and organizing events, but like people that I would call family today. And that is, there are several LGBTQIA plus organizations in Portland. The one that is perhaps most liberal, but also most closest to having political power is Basic Rights, Oregon. And so they didn't really have a lot of experience doing trans justice. They had just spent a lot of money and time doing marriage equality. And so it was at once an opportunity for them to shift, but also like, like now you got to find trans people, not gay couples, to advocate and do things and say things. And so they started this program where they just, recruited 20 or so trans people from the community and send them on these retreats and taught us, like history, showed us movies, and tried to get us to say, hey, how are we going to tackle this big problem that we now have, which is, hey, something happened when gay marriage became legal and marriage equality became the law of the land. Conservatives needed a new target to have a wedge issue, and they picked us, and we were just a very vulnerable target. We were not very well organized. Even big gay rights organizations didn't have a lot of trans people in them. Trans people were not visible within those organizations. And so a lot of things have been built since then. So some of the advice that I would have for you would be like, don't try to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, think of like, okay, who is already here in where I live doing this kind of work? Is it complementary to what I'm doing, or is it just duplicating things? Would it be better that I throw 10 hours of my time as a volunteer over there? Or does it make sense that I do my own thing? Depending on, the situation of your chosen family and your loved ones. Sometimes operating as a family unit is more natural to community organizing than showing up to a mass call from a bunch of strangers who just happen to have the same zip code, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also good to know that say, hey, is there a place so like trans people in this zip code? If we ever needed to like have a barbecue or a potluck or, a mass together for shelter or something, is there like even like a list,
Mm-hmm.
So one, don't try to reinvent the wheel, see who's already doing that work and join them. The other thing would be don't work yourself to death. That's really hard to do when everything feels really urgent. But understanding the world as a minority for me is recognizing that no matter how much progress, how much immigrant reform, how much immigration reform we have, it doesn't matter how much we move on racism or on trans rights, like this is the work of a lifetime. It's going to take a long time. It's never really been about time as much as it's been as effort, right? But it's the work of a lifetime. And so if you think that you go without sleep 2 more weeks, it's going to be over, then it's not. So preserve yourself. You are our most important asset. You are the most valuable resource the community has, is us, ourselves. So, value yourself as that resource that you are and say, okay, well, I am pretty like gold, and today I need my 8 hours of sleep. You're both looking at me like, okay, none of us have slept.
I mean, I've been sleeping.
Yeah, I mean,
Robin
could
has a
stand
harder
to-
time.
I could stand to get more sleep, but I have been sleeping.
It's good.
Yeah, the first night was a little bit tricky. I got some sleep in, but yeah, I'm just like,
The first night for me was annoying because I had taken a nap expecting to be up until like the 4 or 5 in the morning, thinking that we would have results then, but then they came in pretty early.
And then we were just talking all night.
And I was like, boo, now I'm awake for nothing.
But hey, you kept me company, and I really appreciate that because I did not sleep a single hour or minute that night. And you sent me some very silly things about Benjamin.
Well, your name is Benjamin.
Yeah.
If you were to take a Spanish class and the teacher was to like, now you need to pick a Spanish name, he would be like Benicio or Benjamin.
But you were telling me about my homosexual duck, which was very fun.
Yes. I was also probably sleepy. I don't remember.
Yeah, you were very sleepy.
I think I've found like both through this and through a lot of other life experiences before this, I've kind of found that like trying to identify a need that you see and just jumping in to do it yourself is usually, unless you're lucky, incredibly inefficient. Like everybody has their own like abilities and experience and skills and everything. So like I have learned, especially as a person with ADHD, I have to stick to what I'm good at. And what I'm good at isn't necessarily any like specific thing, so much as it is like helping to coordinate people. And like it's funny because I've always been an introvert too, but I feel like at least when it comes to the trans community, like my niche has really become the communicating to the community and also like trying to bring more people in, get people connected like Ben and I have been doing recently. Just like we're just kind of like grinding, like give us your connections, like
Hmm.
then your connections can give us connections and so on. Um and like for me that feels like the most efficient use of my time and energy because if I'm going to do this as a full-time job, I would like to get as close to 100% of my capability, like my energy put into it instead of the like picking some random thing and like working at 10% capacity because it's not what I'm talented at or passionate about.
Sure. I think that a lot of folks want to feel useful,
Hmm.
and feeling useful is the first step towards being useful.
And that can be
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah. But we've had so many people like in our online community just like, what can I do? How can I help? How can I help?
Hmm.
which is which is amazing. I'm like, I have jobs for everybody, just like
Yeah, like, I'm afraid I'm overstepping. You're not. Come on.
we're not. Yeah. There's only two of us running this operation. And like there's a lot of stuff that we want to do. If we somehow like had a staff of people like a business or whatever, then like there's a lot that we could do. But like the hours involved in like executing I really hate where this is going because I feel like I'm talking like a business executive or something.
And we don't have
And
money
it's
to
really
pay a
gross.
business.
I'm not about that whole thing. But I'm more about like we have a vision and the vision is other trans people not suffering and struggling to get their medical needs taken care of, to get their safety needs. Like when we have the ability to connect people to like be advocates for them and,
Yeah, so let's chat a little bit about some of the like potential negative things that are coming our way. And one of the things that I don't like, for example, about something like TikTok is that because of its format, the sort of tiny little short videos, people tend to be one issue, one take, one very sort of singular point of view can be expressed in such a format.
And it's so simplified even then.
Yes, and it's both, prescriptive, like it's trying to tell you what to do, and it's, by necessity making assumptions. So, for example, I saw a TikTok trans influencers telling people that it's time to remove the X from your passport. And that seems to be like the opposite for me is true. I want to have a passport with an X in it because if the administration was to say we're going to invalidate your passport, that would be like a first in the history of the country. And so that is a lawsuit, that is a bunch of different things that it can take. So this idea that like quit being trans, go back in the closet and like try to, like, whatever you look like, try to get that gender marker on your paperwork. To me, that seems like really silly, right? So if in fact we're gonna have this shutdown of the mechanisms to get our gender markers and our names changed, if the government is in fact gonna move in that direction, most likely it's gonna come down to state by state, right? I doubt that there's gonna
Mhm.
be a federal level, maybe on passports, maybe. But then, it's super messy, right? Like, what are they gonna do with the passports that have already been issued, right? So that also feels like I don't know what's gonna happen, but I don't think that like going back in the closet is a solution to that. When it comes to healthcare, that one's gonna suck
Mm-hmm.
because it could affect people in the military, and then
A lot of trans people in the military,
Lot.
there also may be a trans ban from the military, so those people may not be in the military anymore.
which the military doesn't want.
Yeah, because their
because
recruitment is so low, they're letting go of a lot of standards that they've had for like your physical, like how your hair needs to be or what your tattoos can be. And they're even loosening standards on like follicle drug tests because their recruitment is so down.
and there's a lot of trans people in the military who are like they have very specialized skills that take a lot of time and a lot of money to train. And the leaders in the military don't want to lose them because like they're like literally irreplaceable a lot of times.
There's so many incredible trans women programmers. And I imagine a ton
Oh my
of
God.
them are in the
Yeah.
military because, like, there's something
Yeah.
about trans women that are super good at programming. Good for them. I'm not. Could never be
Me
me.
neither. I tried a couple times.
You're just like, "Ooh,
Let's be honest, I just get bored.
maybe I'm one of them." Oh no, I'm one of the dumb ones. Damn it.
I am one of the dumb ones, but it's okay because I've got a really dumb cat and we fit
No.
together, you know?
You are not dumb. You are brilliant in a lot of ways.
Thank you.
Oh, Ben.
Being good at computer programming doesn't make you a smarter or less smart person.
So, we don't know what's going to happen there, but we know it's going to be messy no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
There is that potential, purge of woke generals, whatever that means. It's just another witch hunt. That one's got spots. That one's a communist, like I don't know. And healthcare, that one's going to suck because,
Yep.
you know, gender affirming care being included in traditional healthcare insurance policies was also something that happened a little bit by happenstance. We were at the beginning where giant companies, mostly tech companies, were including gender affirming benefits on their health plans to look progressive back in the days when like Google was an amusement park and was trying to hire every 24-year-old with a computer science degree. It's not the situation where we are in tech today, but that was a situation then. Municipalities here in Oregon, we as voters passed a municipal ordinance that said that the city would offer its employees trans affirming healthcare. And so that means if you work for the city, you could get trans affirming healthcare. Then we passed another municipal ordinance that said if you lived in the city of Portland, your insurance had to cover you. And then eventually, after the ACA became law, through the Supreme Court and all of its challenges, the interpretation of, hey, under Title IX, sex and gender discrimination, we're also discriminating against trans people, so trans healthcare should be included. And almost by accident, being medically trans, which was reserved for upper middle class trans people who were willing to pay out of pocket, people who were willing to go have a surgery in another country and come back. Those trans folks have been around for years. And they were dealt suddenly with this addition of a working class trans group now, right? That we get our benefits through our work. We're workers. We don't just have $100,000 sitting in the bank for us to go have surgery somewhere else. We're going to buy our meds here at our local pharmacy. And it is this big push of working class trans people that have really become the, gay space communism that you see on the internet today, because we understand where our rights come from, where our benefits come from.
Yeah. Can we pause on the Title IX topic for a second?
Yes.
Unless I'm missing a news story, like we still do not have any kind of like, at least like written Title IX protections of any kind. It's just a matter of how the judges who are looking at it are interpreting it currently. Am I right in saying that?
You are 100% correct.
Yeah.
And I can tell you
All these smart people.
I can tell you a story from the 90s that was upsetting to me when I first learned it in the 2000s. There's a new bill in Congress now. I think it's called Equality Act. But in the 90s, they tried to pass an anti discrimination law that was called ENDA, Employment Non Discrimination Act. And unfortunately, the LGBTQ community got splintered between folks who are for gay rights and folks who are for trans rights. Something similar is happening today where like a lot of people are like that is way too far to the left. People can't see beyond gender essentialism. They think it's an ideology. They don't really respect trans people as people. And the Democrats were like, we are not going to include transsexuals and transgenders in this bill. We're going to leave them out. And so the entire progressive part of the base at the time abandoned the Democrats. And when they went to pass it, it didn't pass. So that also meant that gay people went without protections because they tried to pass the law without trans people in it, and they lost some support. And so that means that since the 90s, actually, that is the last time the Democrats have actually had it on paper that this was part of a bill that they were trying to pass, right? And so what we have now is essentially interpretations of Title IX stuff. And those are exactly like you said, based on how they are interpreted by the judge. And, for all the, ineptitudes of the previous Trump administration, they were very efficient at affirming, positions for judges in their government. So it's really a shame that, if you, I was telling this to Ben regarding like name changes. What happens if you end up with a judge who doesn't like trans people, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I got my name changed, the judge just asked me why I was doing it. I was just like, oh, it's just so it better aligns with my gender identity. And the judge was like, congratulations, just signed a piece of paper and it was like done. But what if you roll the dice and it's some judge who's like, oh, I don't believe that's a valid reason. I'm sending this back. And what do you do?
Yeah, apparently out of 7 judges, there's only 1 that I might get assigned that would do that. Here's hoping that the odds are not in that favor, that they're in my favor. We'll see.
Do you actually have to go like before a judge in your county?
It's very rare.
Okay.
There's only like 1 or 2 that would call me in. And if that happens, then Chip, who we interviewed on the pod last week, will go with me for free.
It's amazing.
He's very cool.
We need advocates.
We do. But yeah, it's scary.
And then, I guess at that point you can decide to move to a state that has better trans rights, depending on, the organizations that are available where you live.
If you have money to do that.
Or if the military lets your husband do that.
There might be a chance
Yeah.
that see what organizations are working locally to change the law where you're at, or at the very least, at a municipal level, sometimes you'd be surprised that like counties do very progressive things in very, very conservative places.
Yeah. I mean, on the medical front, Chip was also telling me a little bit about that. And what he was saying is like, HRT is different than abortion care because the FDA can say you cannot prescribe something, but if something is available to be prescribed, they can't technically tell the doctors how to prescribe it, is how he worded it. I don't know how practical that is going to be, but basically they can't deny HRT because there's cancer survivors who don't have organs that produce sex hormones anymore. They need them to live. Like there's people who just don't have those organs by choice that need those hormones to live. So they can't just ban the hormones, period. But he seemed hopeful.
like right now, I have friends here in Oregon who are still on their parents' insurance, and for safety reasons, they needed to go on hormones without their parents finding out. And they found a service that essentially you see a doctor through your phone and you get the prescription over the mail. Testosterone is a controlled substance, so you have to be there to sign for it.
Yep.
But, I wouldn't say it's necessarily accessible to everyone who's working class, but it's definitely way more accessible than hormones were back in the day before insurance covered them, period. And so that may be some service, unless that gets blocked in your state, where folks are still able to get care through informed consent or some other, medical platform.
The odds are very high that a lot of us, if we're going to be staying on hormones, are going to end up having to pay for them out of pocket, which for me is going to end up being $100 a week, which would be a financial strain, but it would be worth it. And if I have to pick up work, I will, but can I find work depending on how things go? But people are going to find a way and people are going to help each other. And so not all hope is ever going to be lost.
We've done it before. We just have to relearn how to do it again.
Mm-hmm. And some people are still doing it. I've seen activities on the internet of people like, let's set up our network. Let's get this figured out.
I was visiting a friend who was telling me that back in the 70s, early 80s, there was a couple in Southern Oregon, well, actually, not Central Oregon, more in like the Eugene area, who he was a doctor and she was a nurse, and they figured out that there was a need for patients who wanted orchiectomies, and they couldn't do a full scope of procedures, but they could do orchiectomies in their like renovated barn out in the middle of nowhere.
That's amazing.
And there was an entire trans community that they helped through these, relatively tested, but also, outside of the system medical care that people were receiving. So much medical care was, dispensed outside of the medical system during the AIDS crisis also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to find a way. It just might be really hard.
That's another thing that we've had conversations about on the Discord is for a lot of these things, like there's medical advocates, there's like legal advocates, there's people out there who can help with these things, but most of them need to get paid. Like Chip, the lawyer, like does pro bono work. But a lot of these, like the medical advocate, like is a trans woman. She needs to get paid, and I want her to get paid. And so, like, there's like a level of it where we're not only going to have to like help each other find these resources, but also we might have to be like, hey, so and so like really needs this medical advocate, but it's like $200 a session or whatever. Who has money to like help donate and cover this?
A lot of crowdfunding, hopefully outside of GoFundMe, etc. Hopefully a lot more direct, because we need our dollars to go as far as they can.
Mm-hmm. So for that and 100 other reasons, community is incredibly essential right now.
And also proximity to somewhere blue,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, for example, here in Oregon, Planned Parenthood decided to open a clinic right on the Idaho border. And,
Good for them.
that's going to piss off a certain number of people, but that is also folks saying we're going to serve this community so long as we are in this box inside this other box. What we're doing is 100% legal.
Well, several states have tried to pass laws that would punish people who travel to another state to get an abortion, which like got shut down in every case as far as I know. But like again, that's a problem with the courts, which is like it's already been a ticking time bomb since the first Trump administration because he appointed like a record number of judges, like not just Supreme Court, just like hundreds of judges across the country. Once one of these things hits like the wrong judge,
Then there's precedent.
right?
I hope there's enough good judges out there who say F the precedent, and just do their shit anyway.
this is also where donating time and money comes in, right?
Yeah.
You got to think of not just the ACLU, but folks who are doing things to keep religious oppression from creeping onto our lives. Folks like the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the Transgender Legal Something Fund. We had two transgender rights organizations last year that merged. That used to be the largest one. This happened right before the election, too. Let me see if I remember, or I can Google.
Other ones that come to mind are Lambda Legal and the Southern Poverty Law Center are legal advocates who will help trans people. I know my lawyer friend, not Chip, but my friend that I've known for a while did an internship with Lambda Legal, and that's where she learned a lot of trans law, and then she wrote the cease and desist to my parents and knew what to cite as far as what they were doing that was wrong. So they do good work.
So the National Center for Transgender Equality and the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund have decided to merge, and now they call themselves Advocates for Trans Equality. So that is the organization right now that is the largest trans rights organizations in the country. Obviously, like any national organization, they're probably going to focus their efforts on the states that have it the hardest. So they may or may not be active where you live, but it's still something to look forward to. I don't know. Beyond that, I think the obvious is find time to experience joy,
Yes.
bathe, sleep, drink water. I feel like people are going to survive directly tied to the amount of privilege and or financial, well-being or whatever, that you can access. Because this is a capitalist country, and that becomes very obvious when we have conservative administrations that make everything private. And we'll see. I live in a state that has a large amount of folks moving here for resources from the Midwest and other places. But it's also a city that is being sort of tapped to the max when it comes to resources for homeless folks struggling. We don't even have an LGBTQ exclusive shelter in Portland. So I'm not trying to deter people from moving to Portland, Oregon. Please do if that is your plan. There are several sort of people are raising money and helping friends move to where they will feel safer, those who can. And depending, sometimes privilege is the opposite. Like if you own a house, you're not probably going to move somewhere else because that's a whole level of changing your life that's not going to happen, right? So you're probably going to have to stay and fight where you're at.
And the housing market's going to do something crazy. I just know it. So, even if you have a house, you're going to want to wait it out until things are more stable.
But at least we'll have our cats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And each other.
Yeah.
First they came for our houses, then they came for our kitty cats.
Good luck trying to take kitty cats and dogs from trans people. Good luck. You want to see a trans person start fighting, you go for their pets. They will fight, even if they're exhausted.
I think because trans folks are in this very unique. Actually, now that I look at, have met several gay men who came out late in life, and so I was thinking for a second that this only happens in the trans community, but maybe it's not true. Maybe it happens everywhere. We're a community that's in constant flux, right? It's really weird, but I've seen really conservative men have a nervous breakdown and come out of the closet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so politically, we are a very charged community. And I feel like there's a cycle of people come out of the closet and everything is yay, you're so brave, yay, yay. And then there's welcome to be the minority in this country. It kind of sucks. Um, especially when people are out to get you. And then there's oh, this sucks kind of vibe. And then there's we should do something about it. And this happens every couple of years. It's a perennial thing. But because it's never there's always people who are just joining. And so it feels like the people get worn out and leave before there is some sort of base that feels more permanent to push our rights like all the way to where like now we have a law that is not gonna go away tomorrow because one election goes bad, right? Like now we have a law that elections can continue to go bad, but our rights would always be enshrined, right? That seems to be where we want to be politically.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that's just the message. Try to radicalize your baby gay friends.
Hmm. And find joy, because our joy is stronger than their hate.
Eh,
I think it
I
is.
don't know if our joy will win elections.
But it'll keep us alive.
Our joy might not win us elections, but it can win us allies.
Also, joy is essential to life. And also, the trans community is so like, I feel like the things that make us happy are so simple and they're always filled with joy. There's something about watching the trans, like a trans girl have like a blowout or have, or even when I had like one of my trans masculine friends go bald, I was kind of like, some cis men are very touchy about when they're balding, right? And we as a society are also irresponsible. We sexualize men with hair and we sexualize bald men, but we don't sexualize men who are balding, right?
Hmm.
It's like, oh yeah, everyone will fuck Vin Diesel, but like no one wants to touch Paul Giamatti. Like it's this weird thing. But I was
I would
thinking
choose Paul Giamatti. He seems interesting.
Hmm.
that my friend would be self-conscious about this. And he was like, it's so affirming because all the men in my family are bald. And it's actually really affirming. It means that like I am one of them.
Yeah. Mine could go either way, and I don't think I'm going to be disappointed no matter what, because it's just what my body's going to do, and that'll be me, and that's okay.
And there's also like, being like, I look like my grandpa. This is fantastic. This is terrific. And I'm like, oh, yay. So, our joy is just so unique.
It's so true. We find joy in things that a lot of other people take for granted, and that makes life a lot more fun sometimes. Like, I just got my first Nerf gun in my life at age 34, because my parents didn't let us have them. And I just 2 days ago got to shoot my husband with a Nerf gun, and that felt so affirming and so joyful.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And he posted videos of it.
So now you're like, you and your husband have like Nerf Bro fights, duels.
We haven't had a big one yet, but we have 3 Nerf guns. So we're going to have a 3-way Nerf fight. The way it went, which I thought was very rude of him in hindsight, he had 2 of them and I had 1. And it was my first Nerf fight. I should have had 2. Then again, that's the kind you have to pump it. So it's probably good I only had 1.
Oh, well, semi-auto is definitely more fun. Just, it's a lot of cleanup.
Hmm.
It's like, all right, time to collect all the ammunition.
Yeah, that's part of why we didn't have a full-blown one yet, because we didn't want to lose them before we had a 3-person one. And we only had 2 of us home.
There should be something like a rake, but for like those Nerf things.
Like a foam magnet that just magnets up foam specifically. That would be nice.
So now I
So
want a Nerf gun, but I'm not gonna get one. I've never had a Nerf gun either, so I didn't even know what they were until like I went to some like college dorm room or with friends.
Yeah.
So I had an interesting and unexpected conversation with my district manager today. She, first of all, a little bit of a you-go girl for her because like she's a lesbian and she like came in. She's wearing like a red flannel shirt over like a pride shirt and showing people pictures of her baby with her wife and everything.
So cute.
Like, and also I'm like good for you given the timing and everything. But she ended up pulling me aside to like have a conversation with me that ended up turning into a pretty long conversation. The bummer part of it was we were reviewing a lot of like incident reports that I have had to file recently from the workplace. But the cool part was at one point she was just like, what can I do to make you safer, to help you out, to make you like very open question. She's like, let me know what I can do for you. I can make it happen. One of the options that she presented to me is she's like, if it ever gets too rough here, we can maybe try to find you a different location. And I was like, honestly, for all the like creepy, scary people where I work, like, I also have a lot of customer relationships that I can't just replace in a day, which is something that's built from like, I think a lot of it comes from joy because these people like see me every single day, a lot of them. And like, they, regardless of how they may have felt about trans people before, like, they see my joy, they see the way I treat other people, that's something they get, and then they register me like, trans person, that one is a good person, and like eventually we build this relationship. I have like, I was just talking about this on TikTok yesterday, but I have this one customer who like, he's always telling me like, you're my favorite barista, I love you, you're the best. He's also like this pretty like big, tall, intimidating dude. Like, he's very friendly and sweet, but like, if he wanted to like exercise his like tall, like masculine, whatever, like, he could be scary. And like at one point he was just like, just so you know, if anybody ever disrespects you, I'll fuck them up. It's like, okay.
Thank you. I will keep
I
that in my pocket.
right, yeah, I'm like, maybe don't resort to physical violence in my name, but like, that's somebody that like, just through being a person like with joy in my life, who's being nice to other people in the workplace, like, I built that relationship. I don't know anything about his like politics or his personal history, but I do know that he respects me and cares about me. And I have like customers who like, I don't even know them by name. Like, I see them a lot, but I don't know them. And like, one the other day said that one of my coworkers, she's like, let Robin know we care about her and we're worried, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help. And like, that's something that you just get from being somebody who's out and visible, and also like has that joy, you know. And like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've cried a lot at work recently. And like, even when I wasn't, like, I had several customers who I know who see me every day, and they like read it off my face, and they're just like, I get it, I hope everything's okay, we're thinking of you. So that said, joy is really, really important, if for nothing else, for like making those allies.
I think it surprises some people when they actually get to know a trans person and they realize we're just a normal person who's a lot cooler.
A lot cooler and a lot hotter.
A lot hotter. We're all so hot.
There
Mhm.
is also like so many distortions about trans people, right? There is something about meeting a bunch of trans people who are like, these are just a bunch of nerds
Mm-hmm.
who dress weird.
Mhm.
Wait a minute, I'm a nerd. I
Who
dress
dress
weird.
weird and sit funny.
And then you're like, oh, okay.
And that won't reach everyone. Exhibit A, my father-in-law, but it still reaches a lot of people
Oh, I mean,
just by being yourself.
hatred is going to be hatred. You know, the patriarchy has every reason to be afraid of anything that says, like, here's the truth. Any human being, any baby can develop into any gender.
Hmm.
That is a fact, that is true. And when you have this system that is like, if you were born with a peepee, you get all the rights, like, that system falls apart immediately when you have already
Mhm.
decided on on such a premise that, like, the reason why you're special or you're an authority or you're this or that,
We're
you
a threat
know,
to the entire system.
it wouldn't exist. And the patriarchy is all just covered in those lies. This is why Joe Rogan uses testosterone. Because naturally, in real life nature, he would be like not just short, you will be like short and skinny and thin and small. And he doesn't want to be that, so he injects himself with hormones.
He needs that gender affirming care.
Mhm.
It is gender affirming care for me, but not for thee, right?
Mm-hmm. One of our friends in our server was assigned male at birth and had gynecomastia and ended up getting top surgery, like as a younger person. And so, like, now they're out as non-binary, but they were talking about how it's like such a weird mind fuck to know that they got that gender affirming care back then, when like they probably would have been fine with it now. But like everyone gets gender affirming care, everyone.
Even my cat.
Oh yes, Ramona is perfect and deserves everything she wants. She's beautiful. She's fluffy and she's like white and gray and she's so cute. I love her. She's gay and my cat's cousins.
That's right.
I'm a big fan of Ramona. Oh, speak of a baby.
Hello.
Oh, that's Nami.
It's the tiny woman. Hello there.
I can tell them apart when they're not together now.
I know.
I was gonna say I only know the Luffy cat,
Oh,
but that
jeez.
she is not that one.
Yeah, Luffy's he's slightly darker and she's got like highlighter on around her eyes that Luffy doesn't have. And she's so cute. And she loves to chew on trash.
And she loves to jump on the computer and just. I didn't know there's a shortcut for a mute, but she found it.
Yeah. When I was playing Stardew earlier, Stormy walked across my laptop and it was like reloaded config for auto fisher. And I'm like, I don't even know that was a keyboard shortcut, but thanks, I guess.
Updating version.
But this has been a good talk.
Yeah.
I always love talking to Ari.
I feel like it's been kind of a low energy talk,
Nah.
but that's okay. I have, no regrets. Also the advice I'm giving people is rest. So like I am going to find something to eat,
Mm-hmm.
and then I will probably just be like in some restful place in a restful position with my cat.
She deserves cuddles.
Uh,
I might have to go find a picture of her on your Facebook and share it in our Discord if that's okay. So when people listen to the episode, they can see the material.
oh yeah, you can definitely share any picture of Ramona you want.
She's
She's
just
got
so cute.
plenty.
Yeah. Before you go, can you do me a favor and provide a soundbite for me? So,
Oh, right.
uh,
Any topic specifically?
yes. So one question, I don't know, question. There's a lot of trans people who want to know, like, from the allies or potential allies in their lives, like, basically right now, what does good allyship look like?
um,
It's a big
Is
question.
that coherent at all?
it-
Like, I have my own opinions on this, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, our podcast is very much directed towards other trans people, and I'm very aware that the majority of cis people aren't going to sit through like a 2 hour like trans podcast to get like the hot tips on like what they can do to help the trans community. And so like
so I mean, what I was thinking is that let me give you a global struggle perspective, right? As
Mhm.
someone who's an immigrant from a small country in South America, I went back to Bolivia to look at transgender rights in Bolivia in 2016. That's actually the year that we got transgender rights in Bolivia, but just on paper. People still discriminate. So even if you write a piece of paper, don't discriminate against us, people still do.
Mhm. Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
The what we want, what we wish we could have, is the solidarity that is needed along any issue that regards liberation, right? Be it gas, be it, Jewish folks in Eastern Europe, be it, war, or be it this. What we want from our allies is that be willing to stand with us when the going gets tough. Because historically, the way oppression works around the world in terms of empire and imperialism is that whenever conservative forces have power, they have all the power. But when progressive forces have the power, we have like a pinch of power versus their like infinite amounts of money and influence. And that historically, the price that we have paid for any kind of change has been lives and bodies, right? People have to literally clash with the police. People have had to literally fight. We used to call them riots. I think, uprisings are more correct. When you think about civil rights in this country, every time they have been squeezed, people have taken to the streets. And that is what we would want from our ally, is that when the time comes to, you don't have to dress in black and go out and punch fascists in the face. When the day comes that you need to like grab, something to a sign and go outside and be like, I oppose this, that will happen. And that also we will find in our allies, because so the fight for reproductive rights is not the same as trans affirming healthcare, but they're both issues of bodily autonomy, right? And I think that we can find solidarity with women and anybody who needs abortion care, including members of our own community, that we also become the people who show up to that fight. And by being good allies ourselves, we gain good allies in return. And we have
Yeah.
solidarity with working class people. We have solidarity with immigrant communities, because all of us overlap. All of us belong to multiple communities. And so when we need to stand up for them, that we show up. Not everybody is going to be on the front lines, but you just show up in your own way. I don't think we're going to get that from our cis allies. Not at first. But I think, the fact that people are just asking us, hey, I wanted to check on you after the election, which just happened to me a couple of times with friends I hadn't talked to in a while.
Same.
That at least means that there is, you know, empathy and a desire to help. What do we want from our allies? Bring soup, both to eat and to throw at cops, both. We
Mhm.
gotta feed the family and then protect ourselves. You know, soup for our family. Just so you
Did I not say in the Discord that soup was Ari's beauty secret the other day? I did say that.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so that's the soundbite.
It's true.
Our allies need to bring soup.
Hmm.
I appreciate your word usage because I've had solidarity forever stuck in my head for 9 days now.
Did I send you the clip I did of Robin's lyrics, Ari?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I'll send
I
you
know
a
you were
recording.
singing the song, but I was also very sleepy.
I'll send you a recording of it.
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
Robin
I
wrote some new lyrics.
yeah, I only did like two
Two
verses of
verses.
it so far, but like I made some very small modifications because it doesn't take that much to modify it from like the working class union anthem that it's been for since 1915 to apply to trans people in specific because it very much does. And anytime there's any kind of oppression where people need to like fucking do something about it, like solidarity.
I'll end with a story that is like retold and retold, so I'm not gonna tell it well. And that is that during one of my retreats, when I first got involved organizing trans people by joining this cohort, they told us several different stories about the LGBTQ rights movement in Oregon. And one came from the 70s when a group of dykes on bikes decided to like roam around the state for visibility. And you have all this like badass lesbians on big ass motorcycles going around the state. And as most of once you leave the Portland metro area, the Pacific Northwest is it's very southern aspiring, right? Like people have the Confederate flag for some reason, even though they're not a part of the South. It's a really bizarre experience.
So silly.
But there's this group of lesbians riding around the state, and obviously, there are folks who disagree with them, and they may, attempt some type of confrontation with them. And when they were visiting this rural community, there was also the workers were having a march because there were, wages and living conditions. They're agricultural workers. And so they united forces to march through this town together. And just by the sheer numbers of just like literally like a bunch of like Latino people who pick vegetables and lesbians and motorcycles got to be very visible and protest their cause and found safety in each other, right? Which I think it's to me like what the solidarity can look like. And it's, don't come near us, we'll throw tomatoes at you, or, my lesbian friend here will do something that cannot be undone unless it's by a medical professional. Like,
Bless the lesbians. Bless them all.
yes, you gotta have a speed dial to where, like, I need a lesbian. Do, 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 do.
Yep. Robin's already offered to do plumbing for me before. But yeah, we need to be reaching to other communities that we overlap with for sure.
Yeah. When it comes to especially like the political aspect of things, like we are, depending on who's taking the statistics, like we're a little bit over 1% of the population. And like that's a lot of people, but by percentage, that's not a lot of people.
Yep.
And like we can't be the whole resistance by ourselves. We can if we want to glacially make progress over the next 200 years, but if we want to actually protect people now and establish some kind of like rights for trans people now, we need more than 1% of the population, which means that people need
And
to.
we need unions. We need, the fastest path to getting trans inclusive healthcare at your job, maybe a union. If, if the union contract says, hey, this is a non-negotiable thing, transgender, healthcare for everyone.
That's a sensitive subject for some companies, and I do not want to get fired.
Yeah, you kind of have to pay
But yes.
to live because we live in this shithole. Well, what's something happy we can end on? Cats. Cats are so gay.
We can end on the fact that this is not over. It's just the beginning.
Yeah.
We're stronger together, so everyone, let's join hands and work together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's all take a nap and regroup tomorrow.
Yeah. Let's make a giant cuddle puddle in my basement. And then we can all have French toast in the morning. I'll cook.
Ooh,
And,
French toast.
Yeah, then we'll organize.
French toast.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, yeah. I can just end with how I'm ending everything now, which is like community is everything right now. If you don't have a community and you're listening, our community is open to you. Like, come in. We're tight. We take care of each other. If you have a community and you know somebody else around you, a trans person who doesn't have community, they're your best friend now.
Yes.
Yep.
Take care of each other.
Organize a self-care party where your friends can come and just low stakes, no pressure, just parallel play and fun.
Exactly.
And that's what everything comes down to. Trans community, trans joy, trans solidarity.
And just getting in a little room with your friends on the internet and chatting about shit for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
That helps too.
Or playing D&D with a group of all trans people.
Yeah, we've been doing that, and that's been really fun, Ari.
It's been so nice.
My character is really problematic. I'll send you a link to the first episode. He's awful. I love him.
He's had like 50 ex-wives.
Yeah, at least. He's like 300, though.
You're just like channeling your inner like edgelord teenage boy soul.
Oh, he's an ex-stepdad.
Doors.
He's an ex-stepdad to many. And
he knows a lot about it. He knows his way around a can of beans.
He really does.
All right.
Alrighty. Well, on that note, I've been Benz and I've been Benz. I have been Ben and I've
You
been
have the
trans.
Benz?
I have the Benz.
He has the Benz.
I have been Ben.
Get into a hyperbaric chamber.
And I have been trans.
I've been Robin and I've been trans. I'm still trans.
I'm always trans.
You can tell the government that.
Yeah.
Get it in writing. Are you trans?
And this was Ari. Goodbye, brats.
Bye. Thank you, Ari.
And thank you for listening to Ben and Robin Are Trans.
Yeah, so nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, I love you. Good night. Yeah.
Ramona's making biscuits in my vicinity, and that also means scratching sometimes.
Yeah. Mocha massacred my right boob the other week with biscuits.
So I have to be like, ow. That's fine.
He's staring at me like he didn't just eat. Now maybe he'll behave. He's not known for it,
We're cats. We do what we want.
including having a poopy butt.
You can't tell me what to do, Dad.
I can't. I can lock him in the basement, though.
Can I borrow the car? Hey, Dad.
Stormy, you can't drive because you would drive through the wall of a restaurant to eat their chicken.
Correct.
I'm convinced he would eat his own legs if he knew they were made of meat.
Very possibly.
He'd be like, I can worry about that later. I need to eat the meat.
I need the meat.